It's the annual walk of the Aviemore Outdoor Club. 1993, the 14th of August, and we have 25 walkers attempting to walk up Glen Ann from Tomintoul up to Loch. Actual walking distance is 18.5 miles to the Loch, plus at least 1.5 along the side of the Loch to the foot of the Shelterstone Crag, where we're going to camp for tonight. So it's 20 miles slog, some of it on tarmac road, certainly the first 6 miles, thereafter on Land Rover track, and for the final 3 or 4 miles an absolute commando course, getting through the peat and mud and following paths that have been trodden beyond all recognition. Barry Fraser, Evelyn McLean, and a couple from Denmark who were intending getting married at Loch. 6 miles on we come to Inchrory Lodge, a shooting lodge and once a very important junction in the cattle droving days, where the glen comes from Dawn side through Glen Buirg. Also the River Ann meets the River Buirg, and here we have the Linn of Ann. Some 7 miles from where we left the bus to have a first tea break. There we see Maureen Fraser. Fleming and Bridget, the Danish couple. Peter McPherson. Mark Graham. And this attractive rapid flowing down at the Linn of Ann here, where the river has a bend and creates more rough water. As bonny a spot as any to stop for a picnic. And there we have Ryan Young and Matthew Orr. Ryan's dad, Arthur, there in the green antler. John Storrett, Ian Turner in the blue. And Gus uses his little meth stove to very quickly boil up some water. And Gus's son doing a bit of serious map reading here to make sure we're still on the right route. Duncan Strayton decided to join us in the walk, feeling fresh and confident. John Storrett and Ian Hindle. Stodd is a great man for the map. Winnie Fraser, this year taking along wife Maureen. And honey as usual. down the river with Inchrory Lodge just round the corner on the left. Further up the river, the road takes a higher route to allow vehicles, Land Rovers, etc., but we take the original route along the riverside.
I know what you mean.
And at this point we're at the Ponyman's Hut, which is a hut set up at a junction where the River Ann looks up Loch, the name of the large corrie. Dara corrie, some 3 or 4 miles up Loch there, very popular with climbers. Fleming and Bridget just not sure what they've let themselves in for. But the going hasn't been too bad up until now. However, it does take its toll with the heavy pack. Fatigue sets in a lot earlier. Nigel Fraser at this point discovers a blister and has to put a plaster on. And there we see the Ponyman's Hut. Just to the right we see Ryan and Matthew. No, Evelyn's not sunbathing, she's sleeping. And the 2 young lads on the trip, so far showing no signs of fatigue at all. And there's Maureen Fraser looking down the glen. And there we see a fine view up Slochmore there. The many tops and tors of Ben Ann running up on our left hand side as we proceed. But very often, for most of the day, enshrouded in cloud and mist. And we can see the footbridge, which is a suspension bridge across the River Ann, taking climbers and shooters, keepers, up into Slochmore. No sleeping Matthew. And Maureen Ward, who has been in training this season, but not over such a great distance as this one. A few adjustments to the shoelaces. Evelyn thinks we're here for the night, but no chance. Maureen's nephew doing another serious bit of map reading. MacDonald, John Gould, Nigel Fraser, John Stott, Maureen Ward. All preparing for the next stage of the journey, which will take us to Finburen Bothy. Trevor Gibb, who never tired for the 2 days of the trip. Ryan and his dad, they're down to inspect the bridge, and I think Arthur's looking for some fish there. Unfortunately, the path was just a little bit too far from the river for any convenient quick fishing. And here we are at Finburen, the end of the road, the end of the Land Rover track. A stone-built bothy, come byre. It's almost like the end of the glen, or as far in as one can take a road. So it's possibly been used for cattle grazing at one time, with the crofter living right up here in the hills. Ye olde cast iron bath, a relic of bygone days. But one building at Finburen has been done up by the MBA, the Mountain Bothy Association, so that at least it's habitable or can be used for sleeping. And there's a fireplace. And although it's the middle of the day, there already was one occupant sleeping on this makeshift platform, which could be used as a double bed. And I don't think he really welcomed 25 hill walkers, fairly damp hill walkers, coming in breaking the peace. But then again, he shouldn't have been in bed in the middle of the day. Ryan, Arthur, Duncan and myself decide to try a shortcut which had been recommended by previous walkers. We were to take the high road and try and cut the corner off the river and arrive at the fords of Avon Bothy. So we headed up from Finburen into the peaty hags and traversed across the slope high above the river. Looking back down, we see a view of Glenanne itself as it winds its way through the hills, way down towards Inshrory and Tomintoul.
Never lie down now, but you're like a sheep, did I? Always lie up now. Only lie down up the hill when you're there. We'll leave that to make a couple of years walk.
And we come down to rejoin the path about a mile before the fords of Avon Bothy. It's been a long, hard slog, and we find a piece of path quite high above the river. It's probably the best little section of the entire path between Finburen and Loch. Tell by the perpetual falls in the water that the river is losing height fairly rapidly from when it comes out of the loch. having got soaked, tired, exhausted, and spent the night under the huge rocks at the foot of the Shelterstone Crag. Sunday dawns with the sun shining and the fires are on to cook breakfast. Many missed out on the evening meal and the ceilidh, or intended ceilidh on the Saturday night. Exhaustion took over. Sunday morning was a new day. Ian Turner didn't look quite as well a few hours ago on arrival at the campsite. Peter looks fine, and he certainly sounded fine. He was the last man I heard last night. Ryan and Matthew waiting for breakfast. Matthew showing a little sign of stiffness there. I think he's just imitating some of the adults. Looking up from the campsite, we can see some of the magnificent rock structures. The Shelterstone Crag, the massive pile of boulders. There's the Shelterstone just to the left of the screen, and looking up to the head wall of the Corrie, and where the water from MacDhui and from Loch rushes down to feed Loch. Some are all ready for the off. Some of the tents are down, packed. Some are still cooking. And we look up to the rock faces on the Cairngorm side of Loch. You can see some of the landslides. Had it been raining on the Sunday, I think we would all have elected to head for Cairngorm by the shortest route and home. But the sun was shining, there was a blue sky, a lovely day, so everyone agreed to attempt to reach the summit of Ben MacDhui via Loch. This meant a fairly stiff 20-minute climb from Loch up onto the level of Loch. There's the Shelterstone, a large square one. Trevor Gibb shares some grub with Matthew. The Vice Chairman nearly always has his back to the camera. It's possibly the cameraman's fault. Mike Gibb and Barry Fraser deciding the best way to fold up the tent. All the tents will be a little bit damp after last night's rain. Ian Turner looking anxiously at the climb up. So one group have set off, and the second group tackle the climb above Loch. Matthew and Ryan, complete with their large packs on, still have enough strength to give us the old thumbs up. Although it's a daunting looking climb, it isn't in fact too bad. There's a path all the way, and there we get a fine view of the entire length of Loch, and we can see the saddle and hear the beautiful colours at the beach end. And there we can see sloping down to the right Corrie Raybert. That would have been one route out, and certainly the most direct route down to Loch from Cairngorm, which is in the cloud there, the summit just out of sight. Stop for a breather. We've got Arthur, we've got Duncan, Matthew and Ryan. And from where we're standing, there aren't many views like it in such a wilderness part of the country as the heart of the Cairngorms. I don't think the young lads will forget this view. The memory may fade for a few years, but they'll be back. The fishing rod, as yet unused. Bridget and Fleming. Feeling much better this morning, but still tired. And anyone who comes here can't fail to appreciate the remoteness, the wildness, and the spectacular views which we have on such a clear day as today. Even up here in a heat wave, the visibility isn't as good as it is today. The terrible trio, all smiling today. Matthew's keen to go, followed by Ryan. And here we see Loch Etchican. Etchican meaning juniper. There are junipers growing at very high level in many of the Scottish hills. And the little loch beside it is Little Loch Etchican, flowing down into Corrie Etchican where the Hutchison Memorial Bothy is, but we're not going down there today. We're carrying on round the loch and traversing up towards the summit of Ben MacDhui. We're having to wait for the Great Danes every now and again, but we've got all day. We were trying to make back to Avon, back to the day lodge for 1:30, but that's not important. It's not a great pressure. Once you're up here, it's not the sort of area where you say, well, we'll rush through it today and come back tomorrow. It might be weeks, months, years before one comes back up to Loch Etchican. Wasn't it good of Jimmy Shand and his band to come with us all the way? look back down Corrie Etchican. Although we can't actually see down the Corrie, we've gone round the Loch and we're looking now at the back of Cairngorm. The back of Cairngorm from Aviemore, that is. And two little blips on the left are the summit and the weather station.
Dog, get out, get out. You probably need the chicken. Yep.
And now we're looking over the back or towards the Braemar side, looking down Glen Louisbeg. The Louisbeg burn disappearing towards the Forest of Mar, and there we have Loch Unya, or the Green Loch, one of several green lochs. Looking away into the distance, that's Benaglow down on the other side of Glen Tilk. At the top of this corrie is quite dramatic rock faces going down into Glen Louisbeg. And the group set off from round the corrie, and as we rise we reach a more wilderness area, less growth and only granite left really rather than soil, and we see we approach the sapper's hut before we get to the summit. The sappers being engineers, young soldiers who did their Highland field training in the Cairngorms, based in Glenfeshie, and many of them had to spend nights out here on MacDhui. They've attempted to build a proper bothy without sand or cement, just a dry stone building. They've managed to get the 4 walls, the fireplace, bit of a gable end, and the chimney. But whether it was ever completed as a building with a roof, we don't know.
There's the other job. Sure kidding.
Fleming and Bridget taking the packs off in slow motion. Duncan showing the strain. Forgive the pun. Mick shows a touch of class, producing a bottle of the finest wine 4,296 feet. Not bad, Mick, nice touch.
Loch.
I never mix the barley with the grape. Shut up.
A fine view looking east down the end of the Ladagoo. That's the River Dee way down there. Benaglow in the distance. Devil's Point down there on the right. Moving up, looking across the Ladig. We are coming to Cairngorm, one of the 4 peaks over 4,000 feet. There's Cairngorm with a chisel top. Just on the Braemar side of Reirich, but here we are on MacDhui, where we can see several little stone circles which have been built as windbreaks or shelters. And now on the summit, Ryan Young. If there's nobody standing on the top of Ben Nevis at the moment, he will be the tallest man in Britain. Quite a few other people up at the summit of MacDhui, having approached it from the Aviemore or Cairngorm side, and of course it's not too difficult, a day's walk coming up from Glenmore.
No more climbing.
So from being in a fairly remote wilderness area, we're now right into, from the summit of Ben MacDhui, right into Punterland. But nobody should be deceived by the welcoming summit of MacDhui. The weather can change, and preparation and equipment is absolutely vital up on this Ben MacDhui plateau. This area takes no prisoners when the weather turns nasty. And now an interesting find just off the summit, a little cairn commemorating a crashed Avro airplane in 1942, almost exactly 51 years ago. This is the 15th of August, the crash was on the 21st of August. 5 crew were killed, and there are bits and pieces of metal lying around, which is just a little bit off the tourist track. Otherwise there would be no relics of the plane left at all. There's Angel's Peak, Gara Corrie, Corriebrochen on Breirich. Some of the most magnificent corries in Scotland. And a view down to Aviemore through the Lanark. Lutch's Crag on the right. And now we come to a rather sobering find, one of the engines of the Avro Anson.
We had to go in and recover a thing, and he found there was a blown up car lying all rusty, breaking the doors off and everything.
So there you are, boys.
Look at that.
Okay.
Trust climbing to be the wrong way up. This is going to confuse the viewers.
An old resting place of the club is beside Loch and Bui, the Yellow Loch, which flows down the Fay Bui and into Lochan, one of the 2 or 3 rivers that tumble down the corrie. And this tells a story, the vice chairman having a little nap. Barry's having difficulty moving. Not to mention Duncan. Duncan supposedly damaged his knee in some cycling expedition. A likely story. And a welcome sight of Loch and looking down Corrie and Snechta. So we're almost home. Snechta itself has some fantastic dramatic views over the cliffs. And there we see the 2 paths, one on the right going to the summit, one on the left taking us to the cairn at the top of the Vehicle Ridge. The dreaded Vehicle Ridge, which is a descent nobody enjoys. Fairly steep, it's rough, and it's very hard on the feet, ankles and knee joints. Glenmore campsite. And as Barry makes his way gingerly down off the Vehicle Ridge, he's followed by Mick, who's equally slow on foot at this point. Some say that the Vehicle Ridge takes the enjoyment out of the day's walking, but again, it's another challenge and gives a better feeling of achievement. And here we are on the top of Corrie Cass. We can see the car park now, and just beyond, or just this end of the car park, out of sight, the building we're heading for, the Day Lodge. There it is.
I was alright until that Vehicle Ridge, but I'll tell you what, I hobbled down. I was surprised at it.
Vehicle Ridge, not Vehicle Ridge. No vehicles up there whatsoever.
Oh my God, we got the race and what?
Hi, Cape Wellers. The frogs.
You get Herman in a minute.
Hot chocolate, Cadbury's chocolate. Drink on me. I've not got my fresh tea.
How are you feeling, boys?
Tea, I'm tired. And a cup of tea on me. I've got the tea bag here.
What was now in the morning? We just wanted to get down to the village like that. No, sorry. I'm not glad he's really. I don't even remember that way. Magic coming out after all that pregnant. But where's the second quarter? So it's only just an hour.
Well, it's everywhere around the hour here, Scott. This is everywhere. You get too far in
This little final descent down the Fecal Ridge can be quite tortuous on the feet and on the ankles and on the knees. We see the car park and the Day Lodge building, where we shall all meet before arranging the transport back to Aviemore. Thankfully the Day Lodge has a licence, is open all day, and Loch there, in the Day Lodge. The packs are off, and a welcome pint. The advance party, Winnie, Maureen, and already on to their second one. John's on to his second one. Ian Turner. The shaking head says it all. But we've all made it. Thankfully, no injuries. Peter, I think, is on his third one. And Mark. Appreciate the hot chocolate as much as our adult team are appreciating the beer, Guinness, lager, whatever. We still had our honeymoon couple to arrive. And here they are. Lenning's concerned about the Scottish Times. We'll be there in an hour, somebody said. A mountain rescue helicopter takes off from the lower car park, and this prompted a phone call from Arthur Young's wife, Lynn, who was concerned that it may have been for our group. Fortunately, she was wrong. But RAF mountain rescue helicopters do train almost every weekend in the Cairngorms. But on many occasions, it's an actual call-out, an emergency that they have to attend to. Cheers, Fleming. First today. And Bridget has smiled all the way through.